This episode of the Candid Sphinx podcast is brought to you by my rambling thoughts. I recently read a biography of Marie-Antoinette. I've actually read a fair few of them, though this one, by the Austrian historian Stefan Zweig, proved to be particularly well researched from primary sources and full of psychological analysis. Even if I thought the author could get kind of dramatic and catty with his opinions sometimes, I definitely learned quite a few new things about the story of the last Queen of France. For instance, Zweig goes beyond all the doubt and hesitation of other biographers to confirm that Marie-Antoinette and the Swedish Count Axel von Fersen were indeed lovers, based on letters the pair wrote to one another that were later heavily redacted by his rather scrupulous descendants. And though I did know how, after being escorted by a mob from Versailles to Paris, the royal family attempted to flee across the border from the Tuileries palace/prison and made it only as far as the town of Varennes, an escapade arranged mostly by Fersen himself, I did not know about successive failed rescue attempts or the existence of the Baron de Batz, a nobleman from Gascony who dropped serious cash for the royalist cause and seems to have been pretty ballsy. While Louis XVI was being driven to the guillotine under the guard of 8,000 men, he jumped from the crowd with his sword drawn and cried, "Join me, friends who wish to save their king." But no one did, and he vanished back into said crowd. He also had his subsequent bribery-fueled plans to save Marie-Antoinette from the fortress called Le Temple foiled when the details leaked. And the Baron de Batz's cash likely facilitated a final unsuccessful attempt to bust the queen out of the conciergerie, the last and grimmest place she was held. Another nobleman and supporter of the queen, the Chevalier de Rougeville, accompanied the chief inspector of prisons into her cell disguised as an average visitor, and attempted to offer to return with a tidy sum to bribe the gendarme stationed with her by wrapping a tiny note around a carnation flower and tossing it into a corner of her cell. But the gendarme's own fear of the guillotine seems to have won out over his need for money in the end. Saying that, though, it all sounds like stuff straight out of the pages of the Scarlet Pimpernel. But I digress. That's not my point. I'm not here to retell any tales much more than I already have. You can read Stefan Zweig's version of events and/or the Scarlet Pimpernel yourself. I'm chatting you up today about a subject most historians might not. A notion I had that there's not just one history, but infinite histories. This is something that struck me after once again reading what seems a story of straight-up doom. Perhaps both avoidable and unavoidable doom. Perhaps avoidable in the sense that the royal family chose to make that first escape that ended in Varennes in an absurdly elegant and cumbersome carriage stuffed with most of the accoutrements of court life. Perhaps unavoidable versus the tide of the Enlightenment, the resentment of the elite, and the misery of the poor. Comprehending the truly humbling tribulations and conditions Marie-Antoinette faced before her execution gave me this feeling that things could have turned out differently, been done differently, anything, even just one tiny thing, that would have led to at least a slightly more cheerful outcome for her personally, and for the gentle, if unkingly, Louis XVI. What if they did? By taking a sudden turn into the world of quantum mechanics, we could shed some considerably different light on the bleakness of it all. There's an idea out there known as the many worlds interpretation. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it essentially asserts that there are a multitude of worlds in the universe, in addition to the world we are aware of. Every time a quantum experiment with different possible outcomes is performed, all outcomes are obtained, each in a different, newly created world, even if we are only aware of the world with the outcome we have seen. The creation of worlds is said to take place everywhere, not just in physics laboratories. To me, that suggests that all choices and decisions, even the smallest seeming ones, theoretically split timelines and create entire new realities. This would truly make the quantum field infinite, with all potentialities of all time and space actually in full existence. So indeed, out there among absolutely everything, there logically would be timelines in which the royal family got safely out of the grip of the revolutionaries upon that first try, in which Louis XVI and his wife kept their heads, in which Marie-Antoinette, the young Habsburg Archduchess, married elsewhere and never set foot in the realm of France. Imagine France today remaining a constitutional monarchy like some of its continental neighbors, or ruled by a dictator descended from Robespierre. Or again, imagine literally any and all other minute variations of possibility. There would be worlds where everything has gone exactly the same as we know it to have gone, down to every last detail, except one. Say Marie-Antoinette chose to wear a pink gown instead of a lavender gown on June 13th, 1786. And nothing else went differently, according to us, but she still created an entire new world. Or say she chose that same pink gown and also created an entire new world in which lots of things went differently, and the whole of Europe wound up imploding on itself or something. I am so just making that up to illustrate the infiniteness of infinity. Though, what if we, collectively or individually, have just steered, through consciousness, towards an experience of this particular sequence of events, from among an infinite series of events? And, I suppose, this could also mean we each experience an individual version of the collective. That there are a vast variety of human collective consciousnesses to experience on Earth, depending on what's going on with one's awareness and vibration. I don't mean to say facts aren't facts, or that we should stop trying to dig up facts in archives and on archaeological sites. Just that our facts are only facts in our world, or in the world the slice of source consciousness that you are is experiencing as I say this. By opening up to the consideration that what we understand to be the way of things is just one way things have played out, we cultivate a nimble mindset regarding the nature of time, history, and ourselves as energetic beings existing on many levels. But how could we possibly know? There are techniques used in shamanic journeying and active dreaming, with which individuals can consciously explore their own lifetime trajectories and observe how different choices have panned out differently in different timelines. People often do this to send healing to parallel versions of themselves in their now time, and receive healing, wisdom, and closure in their own present. This can be done because many indigenous cultures have a deep understanding of quantum mechanics in their own way. For eons, shamans and dreamers have known how to navigate between the particle state, in which we have physical bodies in a physical place and time only goes forward, and the field state of all consciousness existing as one at once, in which time can twist, branch off, and loop in nonlinear ways. They step into non-locality, into what's actually timelessness, and travel into any possible happening absolutely anywhere in any time period. To this way of experiencing, incalculable histories are being eternally written simultaneously. I believe these principles and practices could be applied collectively and culturally. Imagine a group of souls joining in meditation, directing their mutual attention to a particular point or act in history as we understand it, perhaps then also taking off down alternate paths, and seeing what information they could bring back about events or different outcomes. And if we did all that and found there's truth to it, what is even the point of knowing? Most practically, I feel such activity could turn into fact-finding missions that could corroborate with actual physical evidence discovered by researchers. It could give ideas for new leads to follow, answer long-debated questions, and bring forth real proof that could alter our historical record and how we interpret history. For us, at least. Like, think of how the CIA is said to use psychics capable of remote viewing to do reconnaissance, but make it for history buffs. This could really bring some concrete new insights to us. More metaphysically, We could learn plenty of lessons based on what we encountered to make choices in our present lives, thereby ushering in higher timelines of experience in this world, and, of course, perhaps creating entire new worlds vibrating with more positivity. We could add a dose of fluidity to our conception of reality and our identities, getting a greater sense of non-duality and increasing our experience of interconnectedness. If who we understand to be history's greatest villains actually turned out to be some of the greatest heroes, and vice versa, somewhere in a limitless tapestry of realities, we would find all our judgments unfounded, creating openings for true unity consciousness to shine through. And if we were to realize history is not dead and gone, but alive and present, we could ditch our impotent sense of impermanence, that dread of being on a one-way track towards death ourselves. We could even cross paths with other aspects of our souls, living parallel lives in other eras, and understand how much more we are than what we previously allowed ourselves to believe. I feel like that could generate some serious empathy for those around us now and through all generations. And that new ideas of continuation of consciousness could maybe do a lot for our mental health. Seriously, the sheer amount of grief and victimhood I think we could turn into power and wisdom, knowing every story we deem to be sort of sad, not just the stories of beheaded aristocrats, actually has a victorious ending someplace in the cosmos. We could initiate opportunities for individual, collective, and earth healing by intending to transmute stuck or unloving energies we detect. We could travel to and do energy work on denser timelines, holding love for all, understanding the infinitely variable oneness of Source. We could literally lift trauma from lands and peoples scarred by tragedy in those timelines. Of course, only asking for our actions to have impact if they're in divine accord for the highest and best of all. And we could do all that knowing it affects all of everything else. Healing the past would uplift us in the present, which would flow enlightening energies to all futures. We already acknowledge history has some inherent looseness to it, that it's just someone's version, written by winners and the dominant ones and wealthy ones, by those who survived and were literate enough to write it. We already know it's far from solid, comprehensive fact as we tell it. Why not investigate it from new angles of consciousness? I'm certainly not alleging we could see or comprehend the totality of creation ourselves, but we could perchance benefit a lot from poking around a bit. Finding out about untold stories and unsolved mysteries, finding out about ourselves and our shared heritages, finding out it's all knit together in boundless wholeness. I know I'm looking forward to experimenting with these ideas myself and bringing them to you in new exercises and offerings, so stick around. And if my rambling thoughts have happened to spark any rambling thoughts of your own here, please do get in touch. I'd be fascinated to hear them. Talk to you soon, everyone. Thanks so much, as always, for listening. It's a pleasure to have you here. Until we meet again, find me on YouTube, Instagram, and CandidSphinx.com for so much more.